Yeah, so if those are the facts, maybe we may not know the full, we may not get the full picture, but based on maybe based on the rumors, maybe that could be the risk, or there could be more to it, and who knows? We do not have all the facts.
I have a contribution, Madam.
Yes, please go ahead.
Should I go ahead?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've had a chance where I've attended a site visit. One of the things the contractors are told when awarding them with contract is they're required to produce bank statements to show the developer or the client to say we are capable of running this project with at least more than 30% of their own income. So they don't just start the project with the intention of being given something by the developer. No, you have to start a project on your own with your own money, and then later on, at a certain stage, that's when the developer now will come in to give you a down payment to cushion your budget. So in most cases, you would find that these contractors will get other people's bank statements or will forge bank statements to present to the client, making it seem as if they are financially able to handle that contract. And then in the long run, when they're not given anything, that's when they abandon these projects because they fail to cushion their budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that submission, which is true. That happens really. And also even, just the attitude, I think, of contractors, suppliers, sometimes, when I'm awarded, if I win a tender, the next morning I wake up and go to Toyota, go into the showroom and point at a Hilux in the corner somewhere that's nice and shiny and pick it for myself. Maybe from the down payment, maybe I'll be given 20%, okay, at the beginning of the project. I want to buy that Hilux or that whatever car it is to just show people that now things are happening. How would they know if I don't show it? So sometimes that's the attitude, I think, also that is also a cause of why some of these projects fail. Okay, the attitude of the contractor also has a lot to play in this. Discipline of the financial discipline of the contractor, very, very important. And of course, what you just said, where you claim to have money in the bank that is not yours. I mean, at the end of the day, when you fail to sustain a project, of course, it's easier to blame the government and just to abandon it. Easier. And then now you have people you owe money on your back because you thought the government would pay you soon enough. And then you have all those problems and headaches. Okay, so the fact is if you act, manage, and report regularly on risks and issues, you have substantially improved your chances of project success. Which building was that? Was it the building society? Where after the building was completed, it was discovered that in the basement there was something wrong with the pillars, the integrity of the pillars was compromised. So now can you imagine that someone waited all the way to the project finished and even EIZ certified, then that's when now, I don't know whether it was EIZ itself or they were just another group of engineers that came and told us to say there's something wrong with the integrity. The integrity of the building is compromised and it could collapse one day, or the chances of collapse are very high. So what you were asked, where was this, where were these people, or why wasn't there constant reporting, okay, or regular reporting on risks and issues in that place? So communication is very, very important, okay? There should be free flow of communication in a construction project because it could cost you a lot of money after, or if you decide to complete and hand over to the developer, whether it's government, you'll be cutting ribbons, knowing very well that, there's some problem you did not, or you only saw at the end, or you did not report within your systems on time, and so you fail to eradicate that problem, and that problem could actually cause to the whole collapse of a building. Look at this, for example, there's this photo here of how sometimes buildings will collapse. Okay, so this sometimes is also caused by poor communication, really, or failure to act, manage, and report on risks and issues. So this could lead to some of these failures happening. Yes, Daniel, I can see you've raised your hand.
Oh, okay, yes, madam. From what you've just explained, could I be right if I said, okay, if I told there are some risks where, okay, the time the project was ongoing, you didn't see them, then you only happen to find out after the completion or after the verification?
It happens. That's why you need to do risk identification is very, very important. I've been talking about this, where you need to thoroughly, okay, if it means bringing experts on board, professionals on board, or people that have experience on previous similar projects, bring them on board. You need to really aggressively go all out in identifying risks. That way you're safe. Of course, what you're talking about is, remember, risks. I mean, the types of risks we have is the knowns, the known knowns, okay? There are known knowns and there are known unknown risks. So sometimes it's not your fault, really. It's just that no one really ever thought that such a risk would come up, okay? Like the unknown risks. So sometimes it's as a result of that. It's because of that that you end up having all those risks that will come and now affect your projects in future.
Just to add on that one,
Yes.
we have a project at my workplace where they were constructing offices for industrial hygiene.
Okay.
They were almost done. They had even put up the roof, then started with plastering and tiles. Not until one of the big bosses came to say, no, this building just stood tall. It looks like a church. And I don't know other things that went wrong. So they had to demolish it.
So now
They've
think of the
started
money.
building it. Yeah, so they've started building it afresh.
So my question is, where was he when these people? Didn't he look at the plans, like design stage? You know,
No, he wasn't involved.
He wasn't.
He wasn't involved at the design stage. At the time of the design, we are told he was out of the country.
Okay, so it's very, very important. Very, very, Nasala, please mute your mic. It's very, very important for all key stakeholders to be involved at all stages of the project, whether or not they're in the country or out, they would have emailed in their plans, this time information is easy. Okay. So unfortunately, yes, that happened, but that shows how important communication is. Okay, it brings us back to our earlier point. The communication is very important in a project. There should be free flow of communication, okay, to all levels of that project. Very, very important. But that was very unfortunate. That was very, very unfortunate because just at design stage, those designs were approved by the company. So the contractor came in, okay, and started building because obviously he was given a go ahead after design stage. So each stage is very important for all key stakeholders to be involved. That is very, very unfortunate what happened in your organization. Okay, so we move forward. Okay, so we did this, the cycle. I think we will not go back there. Okay, so risk classification and identification. So you have the classifications we looked at these already, isn't it? Internal, external. Look at the project life cycle, project requirements. These are project specific. Okay, project participants are also project specific. So these depend on the type of project that you have. So then you identify the risks. This stage also we are familiar. So let's look at some examples there of how this can be done. So there's this first example here. You have project risks. Okay. So we understand that when you're classifying them, you have either internal risks, you can use this classification, or external risks, which is the best classification anyway. So under internal risks, you have three key players. You have the owner of the project, who is the designer. The owner of the project, who is also called the developer or the client. Okay. Then you have the designer of the project, and someone who maybe concept and design could be maybe under there. And then you have the contractor, the person who's engaged to conduct that, do the construction activities, okay, production, construction for here. Then you have external risks. So external, you have economic, political, and natural. Let's say these three. Okay, so after this, what do? You look at risk identification now. If this is risk classification, then now you come to risk identification. So under the owner there, what risks are there? So delayed payments to contractor. I think we've discussed this one in the previous examples that you gave me there, where allegedly the owner of the project failed to pay the contractor on time, and the contractor abandoned the project. So delayed payment to contractor will be here. What other risks there under owner? Unreasonably imposed tight in schedule. So sometimes the owner will be in such a rush. No, we have a board coming up, we'll be sitting as a board, and we need, by the time we're sitting as a board in the next 2 months, we need that building to be high up and direct. Okay, so now you give your contractor or the designer and the contractor unrealistic deadlines. Okay, so these unrealistic deadlines are what? So many are compromising time. So this could affect quality or cost of both. Okay, so this is an example. So what other risks do you think come under owner here, or developer or client? What other risks are there on the side of the owner?
Bringing in incompetent workers.
Okay. You mean incompetent designer contractor? Remember, this one is one of the projects, so he has a designer and the contractor who are in charge of the groundwork.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so meaning at procurement stage, isn't it? The tender process compromise, and you bring in substandard professionals, isn't it? That's what you mean? Okay. Any other risk under owner?
I think failure to follow legal obligations.
Okay.
I think, during construction, there are certain statutory instruments or regulations that you're supposed to follow, like getting the environmental impact assessment. Maybe you bypass such stages and then you just went on and start the construction, or getting a contract on site and start building. So when the regulation boards come on site, they start looking at, you didn't do this, you didn't do such things, and then they dismantle, or they they dismantle the building when you've already started building.
Yes, that's clear. I think that happens quite often, especially even in my line of work as a consultant. Just a few months ago, I was dealing with one issue where you work as a consultant. Okay, you are hired by this developer as a consultant, an environmental consultant, and before you get approval for the EIA, you go on site with ZEMA, and you find that you find that the person that hired you is already constructing. And ZEMA is looking at you and asking you what's going on. And now you have to come up with excuses on behalf of the developer. Okay, so that happens. Yes, it happens quite often. Okay, so let's come to designer there. We have defective design. Like in the case of, is it Christopher who gave us that example of how the boss later came and said this building is too tall, it looks like a church. So there was a defect in the design according to the owner. Okay. or deficiency in drawings that would come up. So what other risks can come under designer there? I think that's about it, isn't it?
I think measurements is in drawings.
A defective or deficiency in drawings. I think I think these words are kind of encompassing a lot of scenarios. Okay, let's leave it to there. If we need to get back, we'll get back. But this stage is very, very important, and it's very, very important for the designer to work back and forth with the developer. In fact, all the three. Because sometimes a lot of times what happens actually is that these two do not agree. Okay, this one will design something wonderful, state of the art, but on the ground, it's not easily achievable. Okay, designing on paper is easier, but putting what on paper into reality sometimes is a challenge. And it's important for the designer and to be, aligned or in sync with what goes on in this particular sector. Very, very important. Okay, so under here we'll leave these two. Contractor there, construction accidents, poor quality. What else could come up? Let's add under contractor there. What other risks could come in?
I think there's also an aspect of undercoating of the project. Undercoating in terms of costing, yes.
Very, very important. So contingency issues, when they're not taken in, they're not factored in to just remove that risk, kind of manage that risk. Okay, what other risks could come here? What risks do you think are faced by the contract?
Maybe procurement risk.
Okay. Elaborate, please.
Like maybe the suppliers, the people supplying the material, the building material delay.
Okay.
There's also an aspect of poor workmanship or poor incompetence of the workman.
So bringing in poor quality, isn't it? Output is poor.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So undercoating also is a serious risk here that comes in. But of course, the contractor also is faced with many other risks. Okay, a lot of external risks actually come and hit here. Okay, so the currency fluctuations, what those will have a direct effect on the contractor himself. Okay, because he has certain budget that he has to work within. I remember I once had a student who had, I don't know if I'd share that example with you. He in my sanitation course. There's one gentleman who is a contractor, and he was contracted by an NGO, a very known NGO, to construct a block of toilets for them. So the owner, wanted a certain quality, but was not willing to adjust the budget. Okay. Because they required quality, so the contractor went around town in Osaka to look for those systems. They wanted the ceramic ones, the ones that you press two buttons in the middle, the lid of the system. So they wanted that type, but when he went into town to check, he only found expensive ones. So he came to ask me now, say, what should I do? Or whose fault is it? Because in the end, he failed to meet their expectations in terms of quality. Quite right, he constructed the block, but quality, they failed to agree on quality. These two. So he came to ask me to say, whose fault was it and where did it happen? So I want you to help me. What do you think? How would you have answered? At what stage in the construction process did this problem, or was this problem supposed to be solved?
I think the problem should lie with the
For me, I
contractor.
think
So when he was doing when there was a tendering stage, he was supposed to look for the maximum price of all the I think the material that is going to use on the project. But if he goes on to look for the minimum price of or cost of the materials is going to use on the project, then such things will arise. So the contractor should always aim to look at the highest cost of any material that is going to use on the project, unlike just looking to get the contract.
If you
So
always
the
aim for
contractor
the
had an
highest,
issue.
so if you always aim for the highest quality, you will never get a contract. Because the owner is also looking for the cheapest,
So,
unfortunately.
so you see, so such are the issues that we are having, even here in the mining industry. Such are the issues that we are having. So you'll find that most of the projects are taking long to complete because of such issues.
Okay, so what do others think? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I think the contractor is to be blamed for that. They should be leaving room for increase in prices. They shouldn't be undercutting.
Mhm. Okay, so that's what I told him anyway. I also told him that I think the problem lay, in his own budgets. Though again, it's possible that the owner only later on, okay, communicated the exact quality he wanted for systems after the budget. So again, that was a problem where a mistake on the owner's side, isn't it? From the very, very beginning, the owner was supposed to bring down the terms, okay, that he wanted and the type of, you're supposed to describe the type of quality that he was looking for, okay, so that the contractor will make a budget within, the specifications of the owner of the contract or the owner of the project. Sorry. So I think those. But overall, I told him that he was wrong in that he did not enter. He did not quote according to the quality that was desired by the owner. So now he had to take up that risk. He had to take up that risk.
I think from what people have explained, those of us who are in the health industry, we are really getting a lot of help from our friends in the mining and in the construction. For me, I was thinking that no, it's actually the designer who was at fault, because I was thinking that for him, yes, quite alright, he does the drawings and all that, but I was thinking that he's the one who should even specify, like, in terms of quality of to specify the kind of material which has to be used in terms of with the ratio of the strength and all that to the contractor.
No, ideally, the designer, yes, can recommend a certain quality to the owner, but ultimately, who is paying for everything? It's the owner, right? So the designer also cannot just come up with a certain quality that this person cannot afford.
The owner, yes.
Yes, so these two have to work in collabo. This one has to constantly, every step of his work has to constantly be consulting with the owner. Okay, just to ensure that this is exactly what the owner wants. Number two, this is what the owner can afford
But
also.
mom, as much as this,
Pardon? Hello?
okay. No, I was thinking that as much as he's recommending, I was looking at it from a point where I was trying to think that he's acting like a middle person between the owner and the contractor. I was thinking that maybe the contractor will say, okay, once we construct this thing, the road or whatsoever, it will last, the lifespan will be maybe these years. This
Mm-hmm.
maybe it will last for 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
then him being the designer, I was thinking he's supposed to communicate to the developer who is the owner to say, okay, if you want this thing to last, like maybe to last for in the next 10, 15 years, let's stick with this quality.
Mm-hmm.
And there is not supposed to be any compromise with him. So I was trying to think in those lines.
Yeah, unfortunately, on the ground, yes, ideally, in an ideal situation, that is what is supposed to happen. But unfortunately, it's not always the case. It's not always the case. And then maybe it's worth noting, like the example I gave of the plumber, the gentleman I told you, my student who was asked to construct a block of toilets. So in an ablution block. So in that, in his particular case, he was the designer as well as the contractor. So some people will have a company that will offer designing services as well
Yes.
as contracting, isn't it? So in his case, he was these two.
Yes.
Yes. It was this. So yes, in an ideal situation, it should be that way. Okay, this guy should take up the upper hand. Okay, but then in reality, I think issues of money pull that this guy is more interested in the budget or in a quality and budget, of course, and time. But then in terms of quality, it's really up to the owner's pocket.
And just to add on, madam,
Mhm.
these contractors have a tendency of delivering poor quality. All they're interested in is profit. So the designer quite okay would have advised to say, use this kind of material, but then the owner, who happens to be, the owner of the contract, maybe would even refuse to say, no, we'll go by this, because with them, it's all about profit.
Yes, yes. So there's those issues also. Okay, so let's move to external risks. So under external risks here, an example we have here is economic risk, political and natural. So economic, I think these ones are more or less straightforward. The inflation rate, currency fluctuation. I think in our country now we also have fuel fluctuation. Never steady. Every month there's a new figure, or the figure stays the same. Anyway, so under political risks, what do we have? War threats, labor sticks, issues to changing of the law, okay, and many other issues anyway here. They will not dwell much. Natural, unexpected calamities or weathers, unforeseen site conditions, these fall under natural. I think the bigger problem lies on this side, in my opinion. Because for external risks, usually you don't really have control over them, but of course you have to list them down because there's a possibility of them happening depending on how you're going to rank them, okay? Depending on their frequency of occurrence and the impact on the project. Okay, so any questions here? This is an example of how this could go. Let's look at the second example and maybe we'll have questions here. For an example here, you can just have maybe project risks, okay? Then you have the types. So you're under owner, contractor, or shared. Look at this one. This one we had the classification coming in before coming to this stage. But this one, what do you have? You don't even really consider, you don't consider the external risks are separate, but you just have the risks under owner, under contractor, and the shared ones. Shared ones, that's where you have the external risks coming in actually. So under owner, delayed payment on contract, changes in work, lack of scope of work, improper intervention, delays in obtaining site access. I think we discussed some of those here. Okay, and issues to do with them and whatnot coming here. Contractor, labor and equipment availability, productivity of labor and equipment, accidents and safety, contractors' incompetence. So let's look at these again. What do you understand under accuracy? No, accuracy of work is pretty much straightforward. which one looks new here? Improper intervention. How do you understand this one? I think we already had an example. But how do you understand improper intervention under owner?
I think there on improper intervention, this comes back to the owner. If the owner sees something wrong with the project just there and then, he's supposed to intervene, stop the works and do the correct thing.
Stop the work and do the correct thing.
I think that's proper intervention. It's not improper, it's proper.
That would be proper.
So improper intervention is like if either like the example that you gave, Doc, where the system in the initial design he has requested for the ones with an handle, and then he went somewhere else and he found that they are using buttons, and then he came back to say, I want the system with buttons.
Okay. Yes. Someone else wanted to say something.
Okay, then
Go ahead.
I think there. Yes, I think the other example I'll give is let's say maybe if the contractor is busy building, then maybe this contractor is estimated to say, okay, for this kind of building material, I'll be using a ratio of 2 to 5. Then this contractor comes in and says, no, actually 2 to 5 is just too much. You're wasting a lot of cement. Why can't you just make it maybe use 1 to 5 for us just to make sure that because it's looking at the cost. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Okay, yeah, that's also anyway under improper intervention, yes. And lack of scope of work.
Yes.
Lack of scope of work. What do we understand there? So remember, we look at the factors. There's time, quality, cost, and scope of work, isn't it? Scope. What is the scope
Lack
of
of scope of work.
Oh, okay,
Maybe
let's
this
start
can
with
mean
what
that.
is the scope of work? Then we'll understand the lack of it. So what's the scope of work? Let's start from there.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
My understanding is that the scope of work is the overall understanding of what doing the work will entail. It means us knowing the nitty-gritties of everything that will be needed from the start to the completion of the project. So lack of scope of work is where we start a project, then we reach a point where we find that no, if we are supposed to put a theater here, it means that it is actually supposed to be near the emergency room. Then, of course, on the plan itself, maybe it wasn't there. So it's like we didn't really have the experts opinion when we were doing something. Then we just say, okay, we just improvise. We can put it here. It will still be fine. I think that's my understanding.
Okay, scope of work is basically an agreement on the work that you're going to do. The coverage of the work that you're going to do. So if someone says construct a hospital,
Yes.
are you including landscaping around the hospital? And I think there's always that, for me, like, informal hire or informal contracts. Sometimes, I ask, usually, we have someone, we just find we just hire someone to lawn to mow the lawn for us. So someone will come with a lawn mower, and then you mow the lawn very well. Then he leaves. So now who sweeps? So I always wanted to say, so is it like, is it in the scope of work for that person to sweep away the grass that he just cut? Or that's not our job to do? Because I've noticed each time we hire someone, regardless of who, as soon as they are done mowing, they want their money and they leave. Okay, so meaning, according to them, sweeping is not in the in the scope of work, huh?
It's not in the scope of work. No, it's not.
So the scope of work is supposed to be specific,
Yes,
what you exactly need.
yes, what you exactly need. Other projects
Yeah.
also, you hire a contractor to build you a house, huh? Others will do that. So you have a contractor to, like an organized company, or even just maybe one person and he has a team that's, of bricklayers or something. So when they do everything up to tiles and everything, then they leave. So you'll be aggrieved. Why? Because you feel that they should have actually scraped all the paint from the tiles and they should have mopped the tiles, and leave them shining. Should have gotten rid of all the bricks outside, the excess bricks, and even done like a mini landscaping for you, according to you, huh? But then again, that may not be in the scope of work. So as long as once they put the last towel, they are gone. They expect their money and that's it. So sometimes that's where the conflict comes in, okay? When you have not defined the scope of work from the beginning, okay? You need to agree to say, okay, this work is covering A, B, C, D, E, like in detail. Okay, because you risk having this now, making changes now. So now once you say, no, actually you have to scrub these towels. You don't just put towels, but you have to scrub them and leave them shining before you go. And that person will say, no, but in that budget I gave you, that was not included. That labor was not included. So me, labor for cleaning towels and removing paint is actually 4 pin. Now you feel like 4,000 is too much for that job. And then now you start going back and forth between you and the contractor. Okay, that's just an example of how that's happened. So it's very, very important for you to outline, okay, the scope of your work. Very, very important. That has to be outlined in the agreement. Okay, so under shared, there we have war threats. So in case of war, those risks will be shared between you, the owner, and the contractor. And acts of God, the force majeure, they will also have to be shared between the two of you. Financial failure, changes in laws, or cultural differences. So this is an example of how it can be done. Okay, in your contract, as you are sitting to write down a contract, this is how you can put down your risks. Okay, just to ensure fairness, this is an example of how you could do it. So like I mentioned earlier on, the contract is usually the main reason for dispute and the main reason for project failure. It starts with the contract. Failure to assign or allocate responsibilities accordingly between the owner and the contractor. So it is very, very important for you to list down all possible risk identification. Identify all risks possible and all risks known to you that could affect the project. List them down and allocate them among yourselves. Okay, so risk identification, I've already talked about it here. So an example is what we've already looked at. Huh? So this could be data collection on probability and impact. So owners delayed payments to contractor, owners unreasonably imposed tight schedule, change of design required by owner. So you find that someone the design stage has been passed, construction begins, and the owner now, when he was watching TV, he saw flat roof. Meanwhile, his design was another kind of roof. Then in the morning he calls now the contractor to say, no, I think I've changed my mind. I want a flat roof. So now, who's going to start breaking down? Who's going to incur that cost of the broken down bricks and whatnot? So all those are issues that could happen. Okay, those are the